It began with a shimmer, a fleeting glint of silver on the edge of a desolate, rust-colored plateau beneath a sky that churned with storms. Planet VX-407, nicknamed Ruin by the first exploration teams, had earned its reputation as one of the galaxy's most unforgiving worlds. Every attempt to colonize it had ended in failure, the planet's harsh conditions overwhelming even the most advanced technology. But that shimmer was something different. Something alive. Captain Elena Voss, seasoned planetary surveyor and known skeptic of tall tales, didn't believe in miracles. She stood at the edge of the plateau, her exosuit's visor filtering out the gale force winds, scanning the anomaly through her optical interface. Her team, a mismatched trio of misfits and experts, clustered behind her. There was Samir, the eccentric xenobiologist who often claimed the alien organisms they encountered. Spoke to him, usually after one too many drinks. Beside him, crouched in the shadows like a predator, was Mara, a survivalist with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. Rounding out the team was Lee, their reluctant technician, whose love for tinkering barely outweighed his hatred of fieldwork. "I'm telling you," Samir said, his voice crackling through their comms. "This is a sign. Every legend has a kernel of truth. What if the rumors were right? What if humans were here before us? The X-407 is a death trap," Mara muttered, checking her weapon's charge. "No one came here before us. No one survived." Elena didn't engage in the debate. Her visor pinged with proximity alerts as she descended toward the shimmering object. What she saw made her freeze. It was a footprint. Not the heavy imprint of their reinforced boots, designed to withstand the planet's punishing gravity, but a naked, human footprint. Its edges were faintly glowing, a trail leading further into the craggy expanse below. "Elena?" Lee asked nervously. "What is it?" She toggled the comm channel, her voice low. "A footprint. Human." There was a beat of stunned silence before Samir burst out laughing. "You're kidding." "Does it sound like I'm kidding?" Mara pushed forward, crouching to examine the print. Her eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. It can't be fresh, can it?" "It's fresh enough to glow," Elena said grimly. "And there's more." The trail of glowing footprints stretched into the distance, winding through the canyons like breadcrumbs. Samir, who had been on the verge of mocking further, now sounded genuinely uneasy. "What kind of human can walk barefoot on a planet like this?" "Only one way to find out," Elena said, straightening. "We follow them." The team advanced cautiously, their exosuits adapting to the fluctuating terrain. The storm overhead thickened, flashes of violet lightning illuminating jagged peaks and deep ravines. As they descended into the canyon, the glowing footprints remained unnervingly consistent. "This place should have killed whoever made those," Mara said. "The air's toxic without filtration. Temperature swings would freeze or fry you alive." "And yet," Elena said, "they're walking." Hours passed, each step plunging them deeper into the planet's untamed heart. The canyon walls grew steeper, and strange, phosphorescent plants began to dot the path. Samir occasionally stopped to collect samples, mumbling to himself about bioluminescent properties and evolutionary impossibilities. Then they found the door. Carved into the canyon wall, it stood at least 3 meters tall, made of a dark, polished stone that shimmered faintly in the dim light. The glowing footprints stopped at its threshold. "Not ominous at all," Lee muttered. "It's a structure," Samir said, all creeping into his voice. "An actual structure. Who built this?" "That's the question," Elena replied. Her gloved hand brushed over the stone. It was warm to the touch. Mara's eyes scanned the surrounding area, her stance tense. "This feels like a trap. Everything on this planet feels like a trap," Elena said, but her own instincts screamed the same warning. Still, curiosity and duty drove her forward. "Lee, can you open it?" "Let me guess," Lee said, already pulling tools from his pack. "You don't want to wait for a survey drone, right? Too cautious, too slow." "Drones didn't find the footprints," Elena said. "We did." Lee grumbled but got to work, his fingers deftly connecting diagnostic leads to the door's surface. Sparks danced, and the faint hum of ancient machinery stirred within the stone. After a few minutes, the door groaned and slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel that disappeared into the darkness. The air that wafted out was strangely warm, carrying an earthy, metallic tang. Mara tightened her grip on her weapon. "I'll take point. Be my guest," Elena said, stepping aside. The team entered, their suit lights casting long shadows on the smooth, metallic walls. The tunnel sloped downward, its surface oddly clean despite its apparent age. Strange symbols etched into the walls glowed faintly, pulsing as though alive. "This place wasn't abandoned," Samir said, running his gloved fingers over the symbols. "It's alive in a way. Responding to us. That's comforting," Mara said dryly. As they ventured deeper, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. At its center stood a massive, crystalline structure, glowing faintly with the same hue as the footprints. Around it, strange machines hummed quietly, their designs utterly alien yet unmistakably purposeful. "What the hell is this?" Lee whispered. Elena approached cautiously, her eyes fixed on the crystal. Inside it, faint shapes moved, shifting like shadows behind frosted glass. A sudden noise, a faint hiss, made the entire team whirl around, weapons raised. Something moved in the shadows at the edge of the chamber. "Stay together," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The shadows coalesced into a figure. Human in shape, but impossibly tall, its form shimmered like the surface of the crystal. Its eyes glowed faintly, and it stood motionless, as though studying them. "Who are you?" Elena asked, her voice firm. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it raised a hand, and the chamber shuddered. The crystalline structure pulsed with light, and the glowing symbols on the walls flared to life. "Not friendly," Mara muttered, raising her weapon. "Wait," Samir said, stepping forward. "It's not attacking." The figure moved with impossible speed, closing the distance between them in a blur. Samir barely had time to cry out before it stopped inches from him, tilting its head as if examining him. Then it spoke, its voice resonating like the hum of the machines around them. "Why do you walk in the footsteps of ghosts?" The team froze, stunned into silence. Elena took a step forward, her instincts warring between fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked again. The figure turned its glowing gaze on her. "Not who. What?" The chamber pulsed again, and the crystal began to crack, light spilling from its fractures. The air grew heavy with an energy that made Elena's skin crawl. "Captain," Lee said, his voice tight. "I think we need to leave. Now." Elena's eyes remained locked on the figure, but deep down, she knew he was right. Whatever secrets this planet held, they were far more dangerous than anything she'd anticipated. The crackling energy from the crystal intensified, and the chamber's walls vibrated, shedding dust and debris. The alien figure remained motionless, its glowing eyes fixed on Elena. Every instinct screamed for her to retreat, but the captain's curiosity wrestled with her fear. Then, the crystalline structure erupted. Shards of glowing material shot outward, embedding themselves in the walls and floor. One narrowly missed Mara, who dove for cover with a sharp curse. "Move!" Elena shouted, grabbing Samir by the arm and pulling him toward the tunnel. The team scrambled, their boots pounding against the smooth metallic surface as the chamber quaked behind them. The alien figure didn't follow. Instead, its form flickered, then dissolved into a haze of light. Behind them, the tunnel began collapsing, a cascade of metal and stone chasing their retreat. "Faster!" Mara barked, her voice rising above the deafening noise. They barely made it back to the canyon before the tunnel collapsed entirely, a cloud of dust billowing out like a living thing. For a moment, silence descended, broken only by the sound of their labored breathing. Lee collapsed onto a rock, pulling off his helmet to wipe the sweat from his brow. "That was insane! What the hell was that thing?" "A guardian," Samir said, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and terror. "Or maybe a warning." "A warning we're ignoring," Mara snapped. "That thing wasn't a hologram or some artifact of this planet. It was alive, and it didn't want us there. Elena straightened, her gaze fixed on the blocked tunnel. Whatever it was, it knew something about the footprints. And we can't just leave without finding out more. Lee groaned. Oh, great. More suicidal curiosity. But Elena wasn't listening. Her visor's scanners detected faint energy signatures coming from another direction, a second path leading deeper into the canyon. The glowing footprints continued, undisturbed by the chaos they just escaped. This isn't over, Elena said, turning to face her team. We've come too far to turn back now. That thing asked why we were following the footsteps of ghosts. I need to know what it meant. And if the next chamber collapses too? Mara asked. Then we'll handle it, Elena replied, determination hardening her tone. Reluctantly, the team pressed on, following the trail of footprints into the unknown. The canyon narrowed, the walls pressing in as the terrain grew more treacherous. Strange plants with bioluminescent tendrils clung to the rocks, their faint glow casting eerie shadows. The air grew warmer, carrying a metallic tang that seemed to thrum in their lungs. Hours passed as they navigated the maze of ravines and gullies, each step bringing them closer to another energy source. Elena's scanner finally pinged as they reached a clearing where the footprints abruptly stopped. At the center of the clearing stood a monolith, its surface carved with the same glowing symbols they'd seen in the chamber. Unlike the previous structure, this one hummed with a quiet, almost soothing resonance. Samir approached cautiously, his fingers twitching with the urge to touch the carvings. This is older than anything we've ever seen, predating known civilizations. And it's still active. What does it do? Lee asked, keeping his distance. No idea, Samir replied. But it's connected to the crystal, I'm sure of it. Mara scanned the surroundings, her weapon at the ready. Let's not stick around to find out if it's another trap. Before anyone could respond, the monolith's hum grew louder, and the symbols began shifting, rearranging themselves into new patterns. A beam of light shot upward, piercing the stormy sky. Is it activating? Lee asked, panic creeping into his voice. The ground beneath them trembled, and the beam of light fractured, forming a series of holographic projections. Images flickered in the air, scenes of a thriving civilization, humans walking among towering spires and alien landscapes. Are those us? Mara asked, lowering her weapon slightly. Samir's eyes widened. They look human. But this can't be possible. This planet wasn't discovered until... The projections shifted. The once thriving civilization fell into chaos, their spires crumbling as the planet's harsh environment took over. The humans in the images fought desperately, their glowing footprints appearing as they retreated into the wilderness. It's a memory, Elena said, her voice hushed. This planet was tamed once. By humans. But why did they fail? Mara asked. As if in answer, the final projection showed the crystalline structure from the chamber. The humans approached it, their faces filled with awe and fear. Then, the alien figure appeared, its form towering over them. The projection ended abruptly, the beam of light fading. That thing, Samir said. It was here before them too. It wasn't part of their civilization, it was what destroyed it. Or tried to, Elena said. Maybe those humans survived long enough to leave these clues behind. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the clearing. The team spun around, weapons raised, as shapes emerged from the shadows. The creatures were unlike anything they'd seen, massive, quadrupedal beasts with jagged exoskeletons that glowed faintly in the darkness. Their eyes burned with the same eerie light as the monolith's symbols. Not again, Lee groaned. Defensive positions! Elena barked, pulling her weapon. The creatures lunged, their movements unnervingly coordinated. Mara fired first, her shots deflecting off their armored hides. Samir scrambled to analyze their biology, shouting over the chaos. Go for the joints, he yelled. The armor doesn't cover them completely. Elena took aim at a creature's leg, her shot finding its mark. The beast stumbled but quickly recovered, its glowing eyes locking onto her. Mara managed to bring one down, but the others adapted, moving faster and more unpredictably. Fall back to the monolith! Elena shouted. The team retreated, using the structure as cover. The creatures hesitated as they approached the glowing symbols, their aggression momentarily disrupted. What's stopping them? Lee asked, his voice shaking. Samir scanned the monolith. It's emitting a frequency. They don't like it. Can you amplify it? Elena asked. I can try, Samir said, rushing to the monolith's base. His hands moved quickly, tapping into the alien technology. The hum grew louder, and the creatures recoiled, their glowing eyes flickering. It's working! Mara shouted. But then the monolith's symbols shifted again, and the ground beneath them began to crack. Energy surged upward, threatening to destroy the entire clearing. Samir, shut it down! Elena yelled. I can't, he replied, frantically working the controls. It's not responding. The team braced themselves as the monolith erupted, a wave of energy sweeping across the clearing. The creatures vanished, disintegrating into particles of light. When the dust settled, the monolith was gone, replaced by a deep chasm that pulsed with faint light. What now? Lee asked, his voice trembling. Elena stared into the chasm, her jaw set. We keep going. Whatever's down there, it holds the answers. And I'm not leaving without them. The chasm loomed before them, its edges shimmering faintly with the residual glow of the monolith's destruction. The air was heavier here, thick with energy that made every breath feel like a challenge, even through their exosuits. Far below, faint pulses of light traveled like veins of some vast, living creature. Elena adjusted her visor, scanning the depths. There's a path, she said, pointing to a jagged descent along the walls. It's steep, but it looks stable enough. Stable? Lee muttered, peering over the edge. Your definition of stable needs work. No one's forcing you to come. Mara shot back, already securing her rappel line. Lee sighed, securing his own line reluctantly. Just another day risking my life for answers no one asked for. The team began their descent, each step careful and deliberate. The walls of the chasm were smoother than they appeared, streaked with veins of faintly glowing material that cast an eerie, ambient light. Occasionally, faint tremors ran through the rock, sending pebbles skittering into the abyss below. The descent seemed endless, their calms filled only with the sound of labored breathing and the occasional creak of their equipment. Then, after hours of climbing, the path leveled out into a narrow ledge that opened into a massive cavern. The sight stopped them in their tracks. The cavern was vast, its ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Giant crystalline structures, similar to the one they had encountered earlier, jutted out of the ground like a forest of jagged spires. Each glowed faintly, their surfaces etched with shifting symbols. At the cavern's center stood a massive sphere, suspended in midair by beams of light that radiated from the surrounding spires. What is this place? Mara whispered, her voice tinged with awe. Looks like the planet's heart, Samir said, scanning the area with his handheld device. The energy readings here are off the charts. And dangerous, Mara added, eyeing the pulsing light warily. This place feels alive. Elena's focus was on the sphere. Whatever the footprints were leading us to, it's here. As they approached, the ground beneath them seemed to hum with energy. Symbols on the nearby spires shifted, their glow intensifying. The sphere pulsed once, and suddenly the cavern filled with a low, resonant hum. The alien figure appeared again. It materialized in the air beside the sphere, its form more solid now, its glowing eyes burning brighter. You return, it said, its voice echoing in their minds. We never left, Elena said, stepping forward, her weapon lowered but ready. What is this place? And why does it have human footprints? The figure tilted its head, as though considering her words. This is the cradle. The beginning. And the end. That's not an answer, Mara growled, her weapon raised. The figure ignored her, its gaze fixed on Elena. You walk in the steps of your kind. The ones who sought to claim this world, as you do now. They failed. You will fail. Why did they fail? Samir asked, his voice trembling. What happened to them? The figure's form flickered, and images filled the cavern. The spires came alive with projections, showing a thriving human civilization building vast cities on the planet. But the images darkened, showing the alien figure leading a wave of destruction, its form splitting into multiple entities that tore through the cities. "You destroyed them," Elena said, her voice steady but cold. "They destroyed themselves," the figure replied. "This world is not meant to be tamed. It reshapes those who attempt to bend it to their will." "Then why leave the footprints?" Samir demanded. "Why leave any clues at all?" The figure hesitated, its glow dimming slightly. "They chose to leave their story behind. A warning, a challenge, a question. The choice is always yours." Elena frowned. "A choice? What choice?" Before the figure could answer, the cavern trembled violently. The sphere pulsed brighter, its light erratic. "Something's wrong," Lee said, his voice tight. The figure turned to the sphere, its form flickering. "The cradle awakens. Your presence disrupts the balance. You must leave." "Not without answers," Elena said firmly. The figure turned back to her, its glowing eyes narrowing. "Then you will face the consequences." The cavern erupted into chaos. The spires began discharging arcs of energy, the ground splitting into jagged fissures. From the cracks emerged creatures like those they'd encountered above, their forms even larger and more menacing in the cavern's dim light. "Here we go again!" Mara shouted, opening fire. The creatures charged, their glowing eyes locked onto the team. Mara's shot struck true, but more creatures emerged to replace the fallen. Lee scrambled to set up a makeshift energy barrier, while Samir frantically scanned the sphere. "This is bad!" Lee shouted as the barrier flickered under the creature's relentless assault. "No kidding!" Mara snapped, her weapon overheating as she fired round after round. Samir suddenly shouted, "The sphere! It's the source of the disruption!" "What do you mean?" Elena asked, firing at a creature that had breached the barrier. "If we stabilize it, we might stop this," Samir said. "Or it could make things worse," Mara countered. "We don't have another option," Elena said. "Samir, do it!" Samir bolted toward the sphere, dodging energy blasts and lunging creatures. He reached the base of the structure, pulling out his tools and connecting them to the glowing spires. "I just need a minute," Samir yelled. "You've got 30 seconds," Mara shouted, taking down another creature. Elena covered Samir, her shots precise and deliberate, while Mara and Lee held the barrier. The figure watched silently, its form flickering as the cavern continued to crumble. Samir's device beeped. "Almost there, just one more." A creature lunged at him, its claws inches from his face before Elena's shot tore through its skull. "Move!" she barked. With a final tap, Samir activated his device. The sphere pulsed one last time, then went still. The cavern fell silent, the creatures freezing in place before disintegrating into particles of light. The alien figure stepped forward, its gaze unreadable. "You have stabilized the cradle. But your interference has not gone unnoticed." "What does that mean?" Elena demanded. "The planet will test you now," the figure said. "Survive, and you may claim what was left behind. Fail, and you will become another story etched into the stone." Before they could respond, the figure vanished, leaving the team alone in the eerily quiet cavern. "Well," Lee said, his voice shaky. "That's ominous." Elena looked at the sphere, its light dim but steady. "We're not done yet. There's more to this planet's story. And we're going to find it." The cavern seemed to hold its breath, its silence oppressive. The sphere, now dim, radiated faint pulses of energy, as though conserving its strength. Samir crouched near the device he had used to stabilize it, his fingers hovering over its controls. "This isn't over," he muttered, glancing nervously at Elena. "No," Elena replied, her voice resolute. "But we've bought ourselves time." Mara scanned the surrounding spires, her weapons still drawn. "Time for what? Another wave of monsters? That thing said the planet would test us." "I don't like how that sounds," Lee slumped against the rock, sweat dripping from his brow. We've already faced enough tests. Maybe we should take the hint and leave while we're still breathing. Elena turned to him, her expression hard. And abandon everything we've uncovered? The footprints, the sphere, the warnings, it's all connected. If we leave now, we'll never know what really happened here. Samir stood, his eyes flicking between the team. Elena's right. There's more at play. The figure, it wasn't just warning us. It was inviting us. Like it wanted to see if we could succeed where others failed. That's assuming we even can, Mara said darkly. The ground trembled beneath their feet, cutting off any further argument. The sphere's pulses quickened, casting faint shadows that danced across the cavern walls. A low rumble echoed, growing louder by the second. Here we go, Lee groaned, pulling his weapon back into position. But no creatures emerged this time. Instead, the spires began to shift, their crystalline surfaces sliding apart like puzzle pieces. The cavern floor split open, revealing a staircase carved from smooth black stone, spiraling down into a deeper darkness. Well, that's not ominous at all, Mara said, peering into the void. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward. This is the test. Whatever's down there, it's the answer we've been looking for. Let's move. The team descended cautiously, their helmet lights cutting through the dense gloom. The walls of the staircase were lined with symbols, glowing faintly as they passed. The air grew colder, tinged with a metallic scent that set their nerves on edge. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a vast underground chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The ceiling was covered in a swirling mural of light, depicting the rise and fall of countless civilizations, human and alien alike. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it rested a simple object, a stone tablet, its surface etched with symbols that glowed faintly. That's it? Lee asked, his voice filled with disbelief. We went through all of that for a rock? Elena ignored him, stepping closer to the pedestal. As she approached, the tablet began to hum softly, its symbols shifting into a pattern that was unmistakably human. Words appeared, written in an ancient dialect of Earth's language. It's a message, Elena said, her voice hushed. What does it say? Samir asked, moving to her side. Elena read aloud. To those who follow, know this, we came here seeking dominion and found our end. This world is alive, and it shapes itself to its challengers. Those who wish to tame it must prove themselves worthy, not through conquest, but through unity. Only together can you unlock its secrets. As the final word echoed through the chamber, the walls lit up with vivid projections. The mural above shifted, showing humans working alongside the alien figure they had encountered, their efforts focused on restoring balance to the planet. They tried to work with the planet, Samir said, awe in his voice. Not against it. And they still failed, Mara said grimly. Or they succeeded in ways we don't understand yet, Elena countered. The pedestal began to sink into the floor, and the tablet dissolved into particles of light. The chamber trembled, and a deep voice echoed around them, not the alien figures, but the planet itself. Prove your worth. The ground shifted beneath their feet, and the chamber's walls folded outward, revealing an expansive, surreal landscape. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of shifting colors, and the ground was a patchwork of alien ecosystems. In the distance, structures resembling the monoliths jutted out of the terrain, their light pulsing in rhythm with the planet's energy. What now? Mara asked, her voice tight. Elena's visor pinged with multiple signals. We split up, she said. Split up? Lee exclaimed. That's Survival 101, don't split up. Elena shook her head. The planet's testing us individually. It's adapting, just like it did to the civilizations before us. If we're going to pass this test, we have to face it on our own terms. Reluctantly, the team spread out, each heading toward one of the distant structures. As Elena moved through the alien terrain, she felt the planet reacting to her presence. The ground shifted beneath her boots, forming pathways that guided her forward. Strange, shimmering creatures watched her from a distance but made no move to attack. When she reached the monolith, it activated, its surface displaying images of her past. Moments of triumph and failure played out before her, each one accompanied by a question that seemed to echo in her mind. What did you learn? How did you grow? Elena answered honestly, her voice steady as she recounted her journey. The monolith glowed brighter with each answer, and she felt a strange warmth spreading through her body, a connection to the planet itself. When the light finally faded, she found herself back in the central chamber with her team. Each of them bore the same expression of awe and exhaustion. You made it, Elena said, relief washing over her. Barely, Mara said, her voice softer than usual. That was intense. Samir nodded. The planet wasn't just testing us. It was learning from us, just like we were learning from it. The alien figure appeared once more, its form more solid than ever. You have proven yourselves, it said. But the journey does not end here. The planet has accepted you, but it will continue to challenge you. Only through continued unity will you uncover its true purpose. As the figure vanished, the cavern began to shift, the walls folding away to reveal the surface. They stood in the canyon once more, the storm clouds parting to reveal a brilliant, star-filled sky. For the first time since their arrival, the planet felt calm. Elena looked at her team, pride and determination in her eyes. This is just the beginning. We've uncovered the truth about this planet, and about ourselves. Now, let's make sure the galaxy knows what we found.